So after Iger's earnings call last week, I would say it's not lost on anybody that Marvel's in big trouble, especially not Big Bob. Big Bob's got a big problem. It's called Feige, and Kevin Feige is a problem in and of himself because whether or not he recognizes what he's doing, he always falls back to the same thing, and then he doubles down on it, then he triples down on it, quadruples down on it. I mean, we've seen them have the mea culpa moment almost every single year for the last 5, and it's all because what they have to offer is not enough or not interesting or not entertaining. And the problem is they're probably all 3 of those at once. So the fact that even Marvel knows that they're in the hole still isn't going to mean much. And we need to talk about that. So here we go. And speaking about talking about it, I have to have somebody to talk to. So I brought in Kevin Apollo. What's going on, Kevin?
My brother, always a pleasure to be here, especially when we get to share in some dismal Disney news. It's always a treat. On my daily dose of Schadenfreude.
Yeah, so much Schadenfreude, you practically trip over it. And when it's coming out of the New York Times or the Washington Post or any of these other big news outlets, it's even worse. But this time it's even worse than that because coming out of the Wall Street Journal, that's right, even Marvel knows its movies and shows need to be mo better. What do you think, Kevin? Do they need to be mo better?
Oh my gosh, they need to be mo better for a long time. Instead of throwing mo money at it, let's get some better writers. Let's get someone who knows what they're talking about. And maybe, just maybe, we listen to Rob Liefeld and bench Feige.
Yeah, look, I mean, Rob's been speaking truth to power since Deadpool and Wolverine, and for a lot of good reasons, despite that film actually honoring him on screen with that comic book shop that was in the background of one of those shots. The superhero studio's cutting TV production good and is fixing its film slate after fans lost the plot. It's not fans' fault. I hate the way they worded that. It's them. They lost the plot. The fans knew what the plot was. The Marvel decided, we're not going to pay attention to the plot. We're going to give you politics and lectures and all that. Yeah. What do you think about that? Was it the fans or was it the studio, Kevin?
Why is it always us? We're the ones who know what's going on. As a matter of fact, I was talking about just not too long ago, old school comic books when you used to go into the mailbag. Back when they appreciated fan feedback. Sure, there'd be some wacky letters in there, but you'd realize really quickly that the fans actually pay more attention to the continuity than the writers and editors did. But that's because these guys are overseeing 4 or 5 books at a time. So it's that fan passion that kept them on the straight and narrow. Whereas in the modern era, hey, by the way, you said X, Y, Z in this, but then you turn around and did that. You're an istinophobe and you're problematic and you got to get out of the room.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, I remember the back pages of the comics sometimes having direct questions, and you'd have even Stan answering them. And I mean, the golden age of comics was the golden age for a reason. I mean, Bronze Age is plenty fine, but the current age is complete garbage. And the fact that they skipped over all those years of material that were high quality, right? Back when Kirby was putting amazing things together. And look, there's nothing lost on me here that they are walking away from what Kirby created to do this Fantastic Four film, and it's going to be a disaster. I think you would have to agree. But this story, and we'll abbreviate as much as we can, but this story coming out of the Wall Street Journal is serious. They dateline it in Los Angeles, saying the head of the Marvel Studios told colleagues recently that watching all of the comic book giants' new TV shows and films had started to feel more like homework than entertainment. Kevin, that's a sentiment we have been saying for how long now?
What, since the end of WandaVision, right?
Yeah.
Right? Going all the way back to what? So what? Since 2020, we've been ringing that alarm bell, and that doesn't count shows like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter or the old Netflix shows. Like, it just became too onerous.
Yes. Yeah, and the thing is that because they weren't sticking with the core material and they were doing faithful adaptions, I think that's where the fans kind of felt like they were off the track. And the problem is the train kept moving even though it was off the track, and it's going very far afield. You mentioned WandaVision, and I'm thinking, well, I was getting hints that I was going to get Mephisto to show up, which I didn't. And many other things throughout many of these shows. So the problem is that Kevin Feige has acknowledged something multiple times that this has been broken. This isn't the first time. It's the first time I'm seeing it in the Wall Street Journal. But, you know, the studio behind the Avengers churned out too many movies and shows with interconnected stories, and that created the homework problem. Then nobody can argue that. And again, mea culpas all around multiple times now, which is how we started this particular video. The problem is they don't do anything about it. Yeah. Disney Plus and all of its glory released too much information, too many stories that were just of very low quality, and it overwhelmed an audience. It alienated viewers. It saturated something that, you know, could have been done much more effectively at a slower rate with more character development. And spinning down shows into 8 episodes, which is just embarrassing, I think has been an even more dramatic issue for them to fight than maybe having more real estate to tell deeper, denser character building stories. What do you think to that?
No, it's 100% true. At the end of the day, you know what? The issue isn't the sheer volume of content. It's the quality of the content. You didn't give anybody anything that they wanted to follow. So whatever narrative threads you threw out there, they were contrary to what people were expecting to see from the books. They were contrary to what the rules were that they set in the universe already. And there wasn't much fan service. And again, and we're talking about a group now where when you say the word fan service, it's a dirty word for some bizarre reason. But at the end of the day, when you look at the amount of money that people are dropping to go to the movies, to get the DVDs and the Blu-rays and even the comics, you should be looking at this like, hey, these folks are making an investment in our content. Like, this isn't the watching this stuff in unto itself has become a hobby. You know, so it's the lack of appreciation for the time, energy, and effort that people got to put into it. It's appalling. Frankly, it's appalling. But you didn't give anybody anything to hold on to or want to chase, so it got really easy to get bored. And again, oh well, we're gonna chop it down from 12 to 8 episodes. Well, guess what? Listen, even the best of the shows, even the best of the shows, still suffered from 1 episode, 2 episodes too many. There was always that nonsense, nothing happened here episode, and that may be a bigger issue with streaming and the fact that they kind of abuse that they know they have 8 episodes as opposed to needing to hook you in. But the long short of it is you didn't give anybody anything they really wanted to see, anything they cared about, anything they could grow to care about. And then you told us that it was our responsibility to watch it, and if we didn't know what was going on, it was our fault. So, and then you kept telling us that, oh, well, this is going to connect to that. Like, frankly, nothing connected to the Eternals. I don't even know why I had to watch the Eternals other than you gave us a lame reason that Adamantium exists. WandaVision, for a long time, there were rumors that we were going to get Mephisto, that Doctor Strange was going to pop up. Then we found out that Doctor Strange was going to pop up, but he didn't because, Wanda don't need no man to tell her what to do. It's been how many years since the end of WandaVision, and we have no idea where the Vision is or what the Vision is doing. Instead of giving us Hawkeye season 2, we wanted to shortchange Jeremy Renner. Meanwhile, Hawkeye is the only viable Earthbound classic Avenger that would have kind of helped tie everything together. He was someone you actually needed to have on screen, and instead we wanted to go drop a bunch of money on Riri Williams, a character that no one cares about, no one has any interest in, and has never been able to sell more than 4 books in an ongoing series ever. The decision-making process in Marvel is broken, and it broke the moment that they fired Ike Perlmutter, because once there wasn't someone there to say, nah, that sounds like a waste of time and I'm not going to give you the money for it. It became a spending free-for-all, and it wasn't a spend on the stuff that matters. It was spend everything on anything that you think will get the message across.
Yeah, and that's really the bigger issue, right? Is pushing that particular message in rather than pushing for profit. In actual quality. But look, on the screen now is the timetable for how things built and then how they declined. And if you take a look at this, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, Iron Man was a breakout film. It rescued Robert Downey Jr.'s career, and it really gave you a central character to focus on as we move towards the first team up movie, The Avengers. But it didn't stop there. There were many other films along the way that introduced and built characters so that people understood what they were. And by the time you get to The Avengers, you understand all these characters. That's the high point. Then we have a bunch of other introductory character films that come out, and some that bring other people in, but not really. And then we rise to a crescendo, not that much later, right, when we get to Avengers Infinity War. Infinity War's enormous, right? Because Age of Ultron was kind of not where they wanted it to be. It didn't quite live up. But when we get to Infinity War, everybody was looking forward to the confrontation with the big bad. And it gave you a starting point. You had some sense of loss along the way, and other characters were arriving. Characters that were technically C, D, E, F tier, showing up. The Guardians of the Galaxy somehow made their way into our lives and our world, and we cared about those characters because there was a comprehensive, well-told story that wanted you, that had you wanting for them to appear in the next thing. Then, of course, comes along the big bad, Avengers Endgame, crossing the $200 billion threshold, nearly to $3 billion. This film, out of control, out of hand, amazing, and a great way to end and then reboot the Marvel Universe. Except that's not what happened. And so here we go, is a continued diminishing returns situation that was embarrassing, because between Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, you had a Captain Marvel film that centered Brie Larson's character, Captain Marvel, and did it in the most girl boss and unattractive, uninteresting way possible, deviating greatly from the original lore. And by the time she's in her second feature film, which they, jumped in two other ladies into for some reason, The Marvels crashed and burned, becoming the most embarrassing film in Marvel's history. The problem is, everything after that, with the exception of Deadpool and Wolverine, here, another high point, have been in competition with The Marvels for, the lowest common denominator storytelling, character introduction, etc., etc. Is there anything that you can think of that Marvel, Disney, Feige, Iger, anybody in that little chain of leadership, is there anything they could do to stem the tide, to turn back, the opportunity for the boats to rise again? Is it possible? We know it wasn't Thunderbolts. We know it wasn't Captain America: Brave New World. We know it's not going to be Fantastic Four. Is the recovery point Doomsday, or should they bother?
Honestly, at this point, listen, if they had an interest in doing it right, the recovery mission should have started with Fantastic Four. And if you're a Fantastic Four fan, honestly, if you're really gonna be serious, other than what Kirby did, the best run the Fantastic Four had was with John Byrne, and you didn't go back and take from the John Byrne run, because he did a lot of fantastic work with developing Sue, with establishing the family dynamic, and modernizing the book in a way that still resonates even today. So you skipped it, and you want for some weird neo-Marxist feminist power girl boss nonsense that everybody keeps telling you no one wants to see. No one wants to see it. No one wants to see it so much that when Barbie came out, they accidentally made the most based movie of the year because everybody chose to make Ken the hero of the movie. To tell you just how hard everyone was rejecting the girl boss narrative nonsense. Like, I want to see superheroes, and I want to see superheroes fighting robots and aliens, and with lecture free, please. So I don't even know that if they turn out I don't even know if I want to see an X-Men movie from these people. I'm terrified of what it would look like, and at this point, I personally think the superhero I think the superhero run is over. I think it died a silent death, over the last few years. The and you can't blame it on superhero fatigue. It's bad movie fatigue. These films cost going to the movies cost a lot of money. People need to be more discerning with how they're going to spend their dollars. So the just going to see any old thing that has a Marvel or DC logo in front of it, those days are done. You have to earn the investment, and they don't seem to be interested in that quite yet. Again, how many times have we been told, "Oh well, we know we messed up. We're sorry. We'll give it another shot." Daredevil, Born Again is going to be a return to form. I thought Daredevil was brutally boring, and I haven't even finished watching it. But apparently no one watched it. So we can't get the TV right. We're not getting the movies right. The poor Hugh Jackman's going to have to be Wolverine until he's 90, until he looks like Clint Eastwood. I don't want to see that either. Like I actually do kind of want to see someone else get a run at it. I love Sean Connery as James Bond, but yeah, he was getting a little long in the tooth. And we're not even talking about Roger Moore. At some point in time, you've got to turn it over so that new life can be breathed back into the IP, instead of just clobbering people over the head with regurgitating stuff that came before. Doomsday just sounds like an excuse to go. We're gonna go trot out a bunch of old names that we saw from movies you may have liked better. Some of them would have been terrible, some would have been okay. And hey, knowing how we like to handle these big event movies with the Avengers, we're probably going to massacre half of everybody that you really like. So, I already know what I'm in for, and I'm not really very interested in it. And you did this without giving me a proper Doctor Doom. So, you didn't really give me anything. There's no emotional tether. You threw Robert Downey Jr.'s face on a character out of desperation. Not out of any giant desire to have RDJ back. You had no choice but to find a way to bring him back. And I know that sometimes a character going to the other side is essential in storytelling. But when you're talking about properties like Marvel, we're talking about properties like Star Wars. Kids don't buy toys of dead characters. Darth Vader is the exception to the rule. So you iced Iron Man? The Iron Man was so integral to the MCU that they haven't been able to tell a coherent story because you pulled the guy off of the board.
Yeah. Look, and I hate to interrupt because you're on a roll, but I think that was the turning point, right? Is they pulled because he was the linchpin and he's not there anymore.
I think it's funny that pretty much, clearly the writers of Wolverine and Deadpool understood that. They dedicated an entire movie to going, guys, you don't knock the king off the board before the game is done. Again, it just stinks of desperation. I'm tired of getting receiving half-hearted apologies from these people. I want to see the results. I was a person who, just by virtue of my geekdom, listen, I watch full moon movies for fun. I have a high schlock tolerance. Just because it's bad to me doesn't mean just because it's bad doesn't mean I don't think it's going to be good. But if this is a different kind of bad, this is I don't want to be bothered bad. I haven't seen. I begrudgingly watched Shang-Chi. I did not watch the Marvels. I have no interest in seeing the Thunderbolts. I watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier up to point where the Black Ops government soldier who was at this point would have been pulling in bank / global hero because he was an Avenger couldn't get a bank loan. I'm like, first of all, why did you need a bank loan? Your 5 years worth of back pay alone should have been able to take care of your family's house. But that's a whole nother rant for another time. So it's like Marvel has done everything in its power to push people like me away, and I was the person who was dragging people to the theater. It always comes to the age-old question: who are these films even?
Right.
No one can answer that.
Nobody can. But I have a question that maybe you can't answer, Kevin, and an important one. Is Downey as Doom the solution?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
No.
And let me ask you this question, because according to the director of the Thunderbolts, who they're talking to do another terrible thing managing the X-Men is this Jake Schreier guy, music video director guy, that they brought in for Thunderbolts. The thing that Feige told him was make it different. How is making it different than the storylines that the fans know a win? How is that going to return glory? I think that's probably the last question I got. Yeah.
It's arrogance. It's arrogance. It's hubris. It's disingenuine. I mean, listen. At the end of the day, Disney purchased the access to the mines so they could strip all the blood diamonds out. And Kevin Feige said, "Well, yeah, we're gonna take half of it. We're gonna throw the rest of it in the trash. So you're not gonna get any of the real value out of it because I have a better way to do it. You don't have a better way to do it. These IPs have been around for 50 to 90 something years, and they during the height of the X-Men, but the X-Men books were selling over 2 million books a month. Like that was unheard of in the 90s. It was a freaking cultural moment. So you're not going to do it better. It said what you need or different. You should be sitting down and going, okay, everybody who had something to do with this being a success, how do we adapt these stories so that they fit what we've done in the MCU? I guess my biggest grievance about how they handled the FF and the X-Men was, what was the point of jumping the timeline 5 years if you were never going to work these characters in? Because you had the 5-year time gap. To me, that would have been the perfect time. Hey, they go out of their way to say the snap released cosmic radiation. Hey, the FF were in space when Thanos snapped his fingers, and while we were paying attention, while the audience was paying attention to the Avengers, the FF was doing their thing in New York City, and something happened and they just weren't there for the big smackdown. You said that Wanda and Pietro were miracles. So that you said you flat out said mutants existed in the world. So how hard would it have been for, during the closing credits of Endgame, for Nick Fury to say, "I got to go make a stopover in Westchester to talk to a specialist," and everything's set. Instead, we chose the most convoluted ways to go about this, and it's not going to pay off. It's actually repellent. It's repellent. I guarantee you that there are many people who sat down and read this article and went, "Ugh," and I'm done with it.
Yeah, and the problem is I think that they've also said I'm done with it when it comes to the movies and how discombobulated it's all become. And look, I mean, you're not supposed to go to a movie feeling like you needed to watch so many other things to enjoy this, or you had to be caught up on anything. That was the biggest problem, was putting the TV in the film and integrating them. But beyond all of that, I don't think they have a plan going forward other than spending enormous amounts of money on the next 2 Doom Avengers films with no Avengers. Yeah. Because literally no Avengers are going to be in this next set of films. I mean, it's Doom. Downey Jr.'s there, but there's no Avenger there. You have not Captain America, right? You have Falcon, which I love Falcon. I really wish they'd had utilized his character more effectively. And it's all this other stuff. But look, I'm going to give you the last word, and I have to ask our audience a question. Will we see another Marvel movie cross $1 billion?
Ooh, that's a good question. I personally don't think so. I think Doomsday will make a bunch of money its first week just out of curiosity. And then I think the drop off is going to be tremendous. If it does cross $1 billion, it's going to be out of that Rise of Skywalker spite, where like it did it just because it kind of had to. But I just don't see it. I don't see it. I think crossing $1 billion is more likely than this movie even making half of what they're going to spend on it.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. And I think if you're looking at minimum $500 million per film to produce, not to mention the advertising budget, I think if these movies don't make $1.5 billion each when they get there, they're hopelessly financially lost at that point. And it will prove the rule that superhero fatigue is entrenched, and it's all because of poor story. Anyway, I have to ask our audience out there, because I feel like you need to let us know what you think. Is Marvel over? Is our assessment accurate? Do you think that they really actually intend to move forward on quality over quantity, or do you think that they can somehow find the quote unquote plot, and it's not the fans that have lost it? Let us know your answers to those and whatever else you think of down below in the comments section, because we actually do want to know. And on that note, as always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya! Not at a Marvel movie. And end. That was